So after months and months of bitching and whining and complaining from the news and everybody in the economy tanking some, we finally have a tentative deal with China on fucking trade. Let's read and see what's going on. This is from the New York Times. So, Washington. President Trump said Friday that United States had reached an interim deal with China that would forestall a tariff increase slated for next week, providing a temporary detente in a prolonged and economically painful trade war. Mr. Trump, speaking from the Oval Office, said negotiators had reached a Phase 1 agreement that would take several weeks to write and that both sides could officially sign by November. If completed, the agreement will provide relief to American farmers and businesses that have been battered by the trade war. Mr. Trump said that the substantial agreement would involve China buying $40 billion to $50 billion worth of American agricultural products annually, along with guidelines on how to manage its currency, the renminbi, right, RMB, as it's called. It would also strengthen Chinese protection for American intellectual property and give financial services companies more access to China's market, the president said. Now that's a very big thing, and I know like it sounds like that's helpful for Wall Street, but you have to put your thinking cap on a little bit here about this, all right? In order for all of y'all to be able to retire, all right, any of us, all these Americans that are retiring right now, we have to be able to have the bond and equity market move higher, all right, while we have people withdrawing their funds and pension funds withdrawing their bonds and selling their bonds, all right? Because as all these people get older, all these individuals have to be able to stand here and have their money available to them, and the funds end up not decreasing. So in order to do so, it's a Ponzi scheme. You need more people in the market. China has 1.4 billion people. Now, most of these individuals are poor, as it might be. But having them have a secondary market where they can sell their products, it will allow us to kick this can further down the road. So, good, bad, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Right? In exchange, the United States will not move ahead next week with plans to raise tariffs on $250 billion worth of Chinese goods to 30%. The president has not made a financial decision on whether to impose an additional round of tariffs on December 15th as he has threatened. Now, $250 billion worth of Chinese goods does not sound like a lot, but considering the fact we only take in $600 billion worth of goods from China every year, that's a fucking lot. It's almost half. The announcement is a sharp turn from Mr. Trump's posture several weeks ago when the president, angry over China's retaliatory tariffs, demanded that American companies stop doing business with China, right, and threatened to tax every toy, shoe, and computer from Beijing before year's end. The escalation has rattled investors, lawmakers, and businesses, which have begun delaying investment and hiring amid continuing uncertainty about the trade war trajectory. Now, the economic pain appears to have softened Mr. Trump's appetite for a fight on Friday. The president said the two sides would now work on the deal in phases, a reversal from his previous position that he was looking for a complete China deal, not an interim agreement. Well, this isn't an interim agreement, all right? What this is this is starting at one point and working your way towards a deal. It's kind of the deal. All right, this is really what the situation is, because you can just and I'm sure in the contract we can stand there and tell you to go fuck yourselves at any point we want to. And in having something like that, we have to continue to work towards hammering things out. All right, and so some of the tariffs are still going to be imposed until China decides, that it wants to have stronger negotiations for things of, the nature of intellectual property, And that's kind of the situation. It's such a big deal that doing in sections and phases is really better. Mr. Trump said during, a White House meeting with Liu He, Chinese vice premier. So you'll either have two phases or three phases. The first phase will be signed when Mr. Trump appears alongside Xi Jinping, his Chinese counterpart, at a meeting of global leaders in Santiago, Chile in November. The next phase will begin soon after Mr. Trump said. Despite the announcement, the deal has not been completed, and Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, that more work remained, including on the agreement related to currency access for American financial companies. We have a fundamental agreement on key issues, he said, but there's a significant amount of work to do. The deal is far from the type of comprehensive agreement Mr. Trump has been pushing for, and at least some of the administration's biggest concerns about China's economic practices unresolved. Although exact terms are still under discussion, the details the president announced include some of the concessions that China has previously floated, including purchase of agriculture products and limits on Beijing's devalue its currency to gain a competitive advantage. Yeah, I mean, that China, its entire financial system is a goddamn nightmare, and nobody really knows what's going on because it's completely hidden from everybody. So this is what happens, though, when you have, a communist dictatorship, because that's really what this is. Still, the agreement, which came during a 13th round of negotiations, will help diffuse trade tensions that have begun inflicting pain on the global economy and bolster business across the Pacific. In his quest to force China to acquiesce to America's terms, Mr. Trump has already taxed $360 billion worth of Chinese products and has penciled in another round of tariffs on December 15th. Stock and commodity prices climbed on Friday as investors anticipated a resolution to the trade spat. Now, that's some of this is positive, but I'm afraid the gains might be kind of temporary, right? They're going to go up and they'll stay up a little bit, but they're going to plateau and it's going to go back down because the American worker's strapped. It is what it is. The S&P 500 rose 1.1%. The technology-heavy NASDAQ Composite Index rose 1.3%, and the Russell 2000 Index of small capitalization stocks, typically viewed as closely tied to the health of the American domestic economy, rose 1.8%. That's not really how this works. Crude oil prices rose, as did the key prices for industrial metals such as copper. Oh, why I keep yawning. Often looked to as a barometer of the outlook for China's large industrial economy. Anyway, stocks of companies with heavy exposure to China soared. Shares of Deere & Company rose 1.9%, while Apple gained 2.7%, and Wynn Resorts, which generates the bulk of its revenue from casinos in China, surged 6.3%. An index of semiconductor companies, which depend on agent supply chains, gained 2.3%. Semiconductor sales have been down, right? And I don't know. There's a lot of goods that just in general are not being bought, right? Just worldwide. It's not so much the tariffs are affecting prices. It's just they're not being bought. Business groups expressed relief that the negotiations between the United States and China appear to be making progress after more than a year of sputtering. Yet they acknowledge that the agreement fell short of the sweeping deal that Mr. Trump had promised. Look, we're talking about people who... You gotta remember China's history, all right? Every time China makes a deal long term with the West, it has fucked them. For 80 years. So they're gonna be tentative about things. And they understand that they're a rising star right now. It is what it is. So, it's gonna be slow motion with them. And we're gonna have to deal with them honestly and, be open about things and be real. This cannot be something where we're bullying another country, because this is a country of 1.4 billion people that we can't just invade and push around like it's some bullshit dirt floor, sandbox. You know what I mean? The initial reaction among Republican lawmakers was cautiously optimistic. Senator Charles E. Grassley of Iowa, the Republican chairman of the Finance Committee, said that any progress was good news, but that Mr. Trump must reach a more sustainable deal for the pain of trade war has to be worthwhile. After so much has been sacrificed, Americans will settle for nothing less than a full, enforceable, and fair deal with China, Mr. Grassley said. I look forward to learning more details in the coming days. Trade experts in China were quick to welcome the deal as a breakthrough. In the first time since the start of the trade war, the negotiators have promised some solid result, said Q.E. Fan, a prominent professor of trade policy at the University of International Business and Economics in Beijing. Mr. Trump's defenders say China's concessions will generate positive momentum for future talks and result in more business for farmers, manufacturers, as they continue to press Beijing for a broader pact to correct long-standing economic abuses. Critics say that the moves will go only part way towards resolving a crisis of the president's own making, and that the trade war will continue to slow the global economy. Look, man, this isn't a problem. No one has addressed any of this shit that has been fucking the American economy, the American worker, the American business, and the American people as a whole. Just because y'all don't want to deal with shit doesn't mean it doesn't need to be fucking addressed. Like, this is more important than any social shit inside of our fucking country, is being able to feed ourselves and deal honestly and openly with our largest trade partner. Probably is something that we should have fucking dealt with a long time ago. This is not something that we should have been let go for this fucking long. It's so dumb. You know what I'm saying? It is so dumb. Legitimately. Like, I'm so tired of the left. I really am. Like, dude, do what's good for us. Stop worrying about your fucking politics. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, God, I fucking hate you people. Behind the hype, this is nothing more than a partial, ostensibly unsustainable deal lacking in real enforcement mechanisms, said Dave Gregory Dacko, the chief United States economist at Oxford Economics. For business, this will mean less damage, not greater certainty. Dude, fuck off, dude. Real shit. Like, Joe, just fuck off. Man, listen, you know what I mean? The interim agreement also does not resolve some of the thorniest issues between the two countries, including whether the United States will continue to label China a currency manipulator and whether it will keep Huawei and the Chinese telecom giant on a government blacklist. In August, the Treasury Department formally designated China as a currency manipulator for the first time since 1994, at the direction of Mr. Trump. The largely symbolic move came in the frustration among American officials that China was counteracting the president's tariffs by devaluing the RMB. Mr. Mnuchin said the United States would decide whether or not to rescind the designation in a future phase of negotiations. And Robert Lighthizer, Mr. Trump's top trade negotiator, said that the deal did not resolve the fate of Huawei, which is banned from buying American products, much to China's dismay. Yo, it's the beginning of a deal. This is not the end of a deal. This is the beginning of a deal. All right? Calm the fuck down and let's hash this shit out. At some point, you have to get behind the American people and not just the American president. And you have to root for him to do his best. Like, stop being fucking assholes. Like, legit, you're like, the left, this is why, the left is literally the party of women because they're backseat drivers. Legit. That's what they are. They're a woman in the car riding and enjoying all the shit that the dude does for them and bitching about it still. That's legitimately what the fuck this is. Just being fucking real about it. That's how you know that the Democrats and the left are the party of women. I don't know why any dude vote for them. I think it's the fact that, like, they love their mom too much. You know what I mean? Legit. I think it's that, their mama hugged them too much. And they're still babies and children. Real shit. Anyway, man, yo, look, I'm fucking done with this stupid fucking article. I'm tired of it. Meantime, man, you know the situation. Hit that sub button. Peace.